Hey everyone, Discordian Kitty here. We had a new player housing update and you just know I had to overthink everything about it. This time the update is about neighborhoods, which I know we've all been very curious about. I'll be honest, neighborhoods are probably the housing feature that most worries me. Blizzard have been very upfront about wanting housing to be fundamentally social. And while I totally get why, and even mostly agree with their reasoning, it also can't help but raise some concerns. After all, as fun as the social aspect of World of Warcraft can be, the fact remains, people can just be really terrible. So one question I'm asking is, exactly how can other people ruin this experience for me? And because I am mostly all about the lore, I also have to ask, could neighborhoods have any lore implications? Surprisingly, I think the answer to that second one is yes. But let's start with going through the post itself. I'll link it below as well. This land is your land. As a quick refresher, homes in World of Warcraft are separated into two neighborhood zones, Founders Point for the Alliance and Razorwind Shores for the Horde. Yeah, okay, I'm overthinking this already. Look at these names. Razorwind Cavern is this area in Durotar, which makes sense. We know that the Horde neighborhood is basically set in Durotar, while the Alliance neighborhood is in Elwyn Forest. Founders Point doesn't remind me of any specific Alliance location. I'm not as familiar with Alliance zones as I am Horde, but I do think it's kind of funny the Horde location could be said to reference Razor Hill, while the Alliance neighborhood carefully sidesteps any mention of Goldshire. Why is that, Blizzard? But I do find that name, Founders Point, very interesting. It sounds like the name of a new settlement, which of course is exactly what it is. More on that in a minute. Each neighborhood is made up of roughly 50 plots of the same size, all of which contain a house. We want players with different preferences for locations to find a plot that's perfect for them, be they vibe-based or looking for something for a specific character. Some plots are placed far away from everything for the hermits among us, while others are grouped together in small cul-de-sacs of 2 or 3 houses perfect for small groups of friends. Other houses are in larger groupings for folks looking for more hustle and bustle. Sorry, I have to interject here. It's actually cul-de-sac, not cul-de-sacs. I know, it's weird, but clearly whoever wrote this post isn't a Gilmore Girls fan, because if they were, they'd know.
It's cul-de-sac.
No way!
It is.
Plural of cul-de-sac is cul-de-sac?
Yep.
Cul-de-sac, Blizzard. If you want to get into the housing game, you need to know this stuff.
You knew that.
Yes, I did.
Come on.
Everyone does.
Did you?
Of course I did.
So everyone in the entire world knew the plural of cul-de-sac was cul-de-sac?
Yes.
Similarly, there's a variety of biomes in every zone, ranging from Founders Point's spooky forests and autumnal farmland to the lush oases and windswept bluffs in Razorwind Shores. So all plots are created equal, but let's be honest, some are going to be more equal than others. Like, just look at these examples. You can have a house in, like, a field, or a house overlooking a freaking waterfall. Come on, we already know which plot is more valuable. Still, it's nice that Blizzard seems to have tried to cater to a really wide range of tastes, and even how social people tend to feel. Though it does sound like they have chosen to split the aesthetics up between the factions. The Alliance neighborhood is getting spooky forests and autumnal farmland, while the Horde neighborhood is getting lush oases and windswept bluffs. If you're a Forsaken who's hoping for something spooky in the Horde neighborhood, you might just have to settle for one of the spookier spots in the Alliance neighborhoods. Because we already know houses are account-wide, we'll have one house in each, so you can use your Horde characters to visit your Alliance neighborhood and vice versa. Blizzard mentions basing a house on the vibe of a specific character. Unless we're told otherwise, it's probably safe to assume this doesn't mean we can have 50 different houses to suit 50 different characters. 2 houses per account, 1 per neighborhood, that's what we've been promised. But let's assume that you have a Forsaken character important enough to theme one of your 2 houses around, and you want your spooky house. Razorwind's windswept bluffs and lush oases don't quite work for you, not even the bits with the more Ashara-style trees. But one of the spookier areas in Founders Point is kinda perfect. I can see this presenting a little bit of a problem for the more RP-minded player. If your Forsaken is a Sylvanas loyalist, you played Warcraft 3, and as far as you're concerned, this character has been around since the founding of Undercity itself, then it probably doesn't matter just how many times you get told there's peace between the Alliance and Horde now. You're never going to feel comfortable in the Alliance neighborhood. And for that reason, I really hope that the Horde neighborhood has, for example, decently spooky areas as well. But on the other hand, the thought of Forsaken walking around the Alliance neighborhood is, lore-wise, quite revolutionary. Remember, a lot of Forsaken have still living relatives among the Alliance's humans. The fact that they're estranged from their families is a great sore point among many of them. This plays a pivotal role in the novel Before the Storm. Set before the events of Battle for Azeroth, the novel recounts one of Anduin Wryn's earliest projects as High King of the Alliance, which also turned out to be one of his biggest failures. After realizing a lot of his people have loved ones among the Forsaken, and fresh from working with the Horde, including undead at Netherlight Temple, Anduin tries to set up a gathering between some of his own citizens and their undead relatives. Sylvanas reluctantly agrees, and the undead who are chosen to take part are so excited, leading to one of the most endearing scenes involving the undead in World of Warcraft's history. As she looked around, she noticed that Annie Lansing had a basket of sachets, flowers in full bloom, and scarves, and she was allowing council members to make a selection. Annie had no jawbone, and she currently had a pretty green scarf wrapped around the lower part of her face. "Oh, that's such a nice thing Annie is doing," Elsie exclaimed. "It's going to be difficult for our loved ones to see what's happened to us. A scarf or sachet will help." The story is a tragic one. Largely thanks to Kalia being an idiot, but a bit thanks to Sylvanas already signing up to Team Jailer, the whole thing ends in second deaths for most of the Forsaken who take part. It's heartbreaking, but one of the saddest moments happens even before then. When Annie, the one who came up with the scarf idea, faces her mother, she's met with rejection. "I thought if they weren't distracted by what we looked like, what we smelled like, they could truly see us," Annie replied sadly. "Truly see me? Who was it?" There was a pause. "My mother." "A mother's love is supposed to be unconditional," Sylvanas said. "Apparently it isn't," Annie said bitterly. She unwound the scarf, and Sylvanas gazed unflinchingly into her marred face. Living prejudice against the undead runs deep. A lot of people just can't get past the whole zombie thing. But despite the fact that the gathering ultimately failed, it did first prove something, that reunion is possible. Despite what happens to Annie, a lot of the undead do get to have a beautiful, heartfelt moment with their still living relatives. And this sort of thing is found across World of Warcraft. For every character ready to follow Marin into the new Red Dawn, there's characters ready and willing to see past differences and work together. So a future where undead might live next door to living humans was never impossible, but it would be a big deal. It deserves a bit of in-game lore fanfare. Story-wise, the Alliance and Horde have been at peace for years now. A second attempt at something like the Gathering might be due. No one really expects Turalyon to be the leader in charge of something like that, but the man has been regent over the most peaceful time, at least between the factions, in World of Warcraft's recent history. He visits Horde cities and adores his voidy wife, so he's really been showing himself to be a lot more open-minded than people like to give him credit for. I could see there maybe being problems moving Forsaken into, say, Stormwind, but theoretically, a deal between the Alliance and Horde where they both establish a new settlement that accepts members of both factions as a sort of experiment, a gathering plus, is something that could make sense right now. My point is, this is big enough to deserve actual in-universe lore to explain what's happening. Please, don't let player housing go the way of Plunderstorm, where despite the Arathi Highlands having plenty of problems, not a single person seems to be bothered by constant pirate raids. Yeah, I still think Marin could have mentioned something about how, and we keep getting these infernal pirates. It would have been very funny. Anyway, we should probably keep going through this post. In both neighborhoods, you'll find a dynamic central hub area full of both NPC activity and endeavors. Keep reading. And I will in a bit, but yes, central hub full of NPC activity, Lore Walker chose plays, and a neighborhood tavern confirmed. An important consideration for us, and one of the reasons these zones are so big, is we want to give players ample space. Partly because having a yard that you can decorate really lets people express themselves, but also because we wanted to make sure there is enough room between plots that players didn't run afoul of each other's yards. You won't have to worry about your neighbor's old growth tree jutting through your delicately constructed hedge maze. I have some questions about this, but I'll get to that in a bit. Housing organizations in Azeroth, or HOA. See, because people were worried about homeowner associations. It's a pun. Very cute, Blizzard. Very dealing with the concerns head on. It's not just a question of where you choose to live, but who you choose to live near that's important. And don't worry, there aren't actually any HOAs here unless players choose to implement them. Neighborhoods are persistent, so anyone you live near will be your neighbor forevermore, making this decision important, though you can move at any time, so don't worry too much. This allows your neighborhood to be customized, and you can work with other players to progress it together. There are two types of neighborhoods. Public neighborhoods. These are created as needed by the game servers, and anyone can buy a house in them. As they fill up, new instances are created, so players looking for a house shouldn't see a message about all the neighborhoods being full. Public neighborhoods are run by the game as well, including naming it with a semi-procedurally generated name, organizing endeavors, again see below, and keeping the neighborhood running however is needed. Private neighborhoods. These are created and owned by players, either by guilds as guild neighborhoods or by arbitrary groups of players as charter neighborhoods. To create and maintain a private neighborhood, there's a minimum number of players, not characters, who must be in the guild or charter, as well as, eventually, a minimum number of players who must live in the neighborhood. This is due to technical concerns around server and database performance, as neighborhoods are significantly more complicated than a simple instance. See, one thing I'm still not seeing a clear answer to here is, will we be able to get around the 2-house limit with private neighborhoods? In other words, can I have a house in an Alliance public neighborhood, another one in a Horde public neighborhood, and then a third one in my guild's neighborhood, and maybe a fourth one in a charter neighborhood that, say, only allows Forsaken and human characters because they're role-playing a special Forsaken and humans getting to reconnect again neighborhood? So far, everything seems to indicate the answer is no, but they haven't come out and stated that for sure, so I'm still curious. One of the problems with this is it risks neighborhood ghost towns. Maybe you have a Forsaken in the special new Lordaeron neighborhood, but the whole idea was just a novelty to you and you'll never bother to log in. Honestly, this is a risk with neighborhoods in general. If enough people get over the novelty of their player homes, they might never visit them, transforming neighborhoods into ghost towns. By the sounds of it, Blizzard have already designed around that problem by allowing neighborhoods to kick out inactive members. And it really is homeowner associations, but in a way that makes sense. If someone is removed from a guild, they're removed from the guild's neighborhood. That's fair. You don't want some bitter ex-guildmate still hanging around as your neighbor. It sounds like neighborhood controls will work similar to guild permissions, so you could have a small council of people in charge, or if you're so inclined, one single power-mad king. Guild and charter neighborhoods have largely the same functionality. They can be named by their owners, and the names do not have to be unique, though they do have delimiters to differentiate them from one another. Players control who can live in them. For guilds, this is via the guild roster. If a guild removes someone, the player will also be removed from the neighborhood. Charters have manual control over who can live there via a special UI. There's a permission system for who can control the settings, membership, etc. Managing endeavors is the responsibility of the owner and managers. And you know what this means. There's going to be so much drama. Drama the likes of which we have never seen before. Guilds imploding can already be a source of just so much chaos. Imagine how much more emotionally charged it's going to be with housing involved. I am joking, mostly, but I do think this whole neighborhood system is going to bring a form of socialization to World of Warcraft that we really haven't seen on a widespread scale for years. I think we're about to see people get a lot more emotionally invested in their guilds, because now these are your neighbors who you see every day. They're associated with your home. This could end up in tears, absolutely, but it could also be really good. If you want to solve loneliness, give people a place to socialize. Blizzard is doing that. There's one big difference, however, between guild and charter neighborhoods. Guild neighborhoods will have homes available for everyone in a guild through additional attached instances, regardless of the guild's size, while charters are limited to the maximum number of plots in a neighborhood. So yes, while there's going to be drama, at least there won't be popularity contest drama. At least, unless you count who gets put on the homeowners committee. But a big guild isn't going to have to pick and choose who gets a house. Everyone gets one, and neighborhoods will just keep increasing in size if they have to. This will absolutely lead to some monster neighborhoods, and I'm pretty excited to see them. Don't you be my neighbor? 2 questions that we've gotten a number of times that we want to quickly answer. 1. What happens if I don't like my neighbors or neighborhood? We've designed this to be frictionless and straightforward, so you can just get up and move. You can choose to relinquish a house at any time, at which point your house's state will be saved, ready to be unpacked with a click when you purchase a new house elsewhere. When you move out, there's a regret timer started, so if you change your mind before purchasing a new house, you can move right back in. Once you buy a new place or the timer elapses, your old house will go back up for sale and another player can buy it. It's worth calling out that if you are evicted from a private neighborhood, your house is also packed up too. So this news is awesome. Not only because this solves the biggest problem player-home-owner associations were about to cause. Yes, you can be kicked out of your neighborhood, but at least you won't lose your carefully designed house in the process. But also because it's proof that houses are going to be built on a system that allows easy saving and loading, which opens the door to just so many possibilities. First, if you can export and import your house the way we do with Transmog right now, this means there is a new housing profession after all. We're going to have professional interior decorators. This is something people have been asking for, so it's really good to see that they might already be building the system around accommodating it. Second, I'm really hoping this means we'll easily be able to switch between houses. I've spoken a little about this before, but the one way to solve the whole only 2 houses per person problem is to let players have the option to change their houses when they change their characters. If your undead wants a graveyard but your orc wants a nice garden, what? Have you seen Nagrand? Orcs love places that are lush and green. Being able to easily switch between house presets could make it really easy to ensure every character gets to play the fantasy they want. And I still kinda love the idea of being able to tell which alt my friend is logged into just by looking at their house. And I also can have decision paralysis, so being able to switch between different houses would just make me so happy. Please Blizzard, this needs to be a thing. This also tells us a little something about the plots outside our houses. They've already told us our yards are going to be pretty big, or to allow that creative player expression. But if the yards can be packed up and moved as easily as the house interior, that suggests every plot is still going to be pretty much the same size and shape. It'll be our own creativity that will give neighborhoods their diversity. That said, even though you can just move your whole house and yard from neighborhood to neighborhood, you probably can still lose your plot. So if you do get that coveted waterfall location, you're probably going to want to stay on really good terms with your guild. Can people just walk into my yard or house? It depends. We want your house to be your space and for you to feel safe there, but also recognize that some people are more social. To that end, both your plot and your house have independent permissions that can be set to allow or deny friends, guildmates, neighbors, or anyone. This lets you, for example, allow anyone into your plot, but only friends and guildmates inside. Of course, these permissions can be changed at any time. If you want to make a private for a book club meeting in the afternoon and then open it up for a dance party at night. These permissions are frequently checked, so if you do change them, it will remove anyone whose permissions are no longer valid. I thought I didn't have a dog in this race, but now that I think about it, I love the idea of creating themed houses and then inviting people over to look around. Given enough time and decorations, I could potentially create entire lore-themed museums. Like, imagine being able to tell the story of the Windrunner sisters with visual aids inside your own player home. This absolutely has the potential to really make player housing deeply social. And that's without even getting into the next bit. So let's get into the next bit. This is the part where we talk about endeavors. Endeavors are a neighborhood-wide activity open to anyone who lives in the neighborhood. Endeavors occur approximately once a month, and when a new endeavor becomes available, the neighborhood is provided with the opportunity to learn from various cultures and factions of Azeroth by completing different tasks. Players in private neighborhoods can choose from a selection of endeavors, though occasionally a set endeavor appears to highlight things happening in the world. In public neighborhoods, the game servers are responsible for choosing which endeavors are active. Each endeavor has a group of tasks that are collectively completed by the neighborhood. As tasks are completed, more NPCs from that area show up, making various themed decorations available to the neighborhood inhabitants, or even visiting players from other neighborhoods. And the neighborhood changes virtually to be decorated in that faction's fashion. The number of tasks required scales with neighborhood size, so a 50-player neighborhood will have to complete more tasks than a 10-player neighborhood. Similarly, if a neighborhood is less active, future endeavors for that neighborhood will also scale their requirements down to accommodate. Now, I've seen some complaints about this. People don't like the idea that this could cause FOMO. Your neighborhood ends up going for the endeavor you don't want, and it takes forever for the endeavor that lets the vendor selling the decorative items you do want to show up. I've seen words like time gating thrown around, which you know is something gamers only start to say when they're under extreme distress. But I think this is one of the best ideas that Blizzard have had so far. Because if you want players visiting not only their own neighborhoods but exploring other people's neighborhoods, this is how you do it. They're going to have to set up a whole different section in the group finder just for people wanting to travel around to different neighborhoods to access the vendors they're looking for. And while you're visiting a neighborhood, maybe you spot a haunted mansion, or are invited to a dance party, or a lore museum. Shut up, it's a cool idea. I say this about player housing a lot, but the possibilities are genuinely endless. Also, even if your own neighborhood is too lazy to unlock your own vendors, this system means you'll still find a neighborhood that did manage to unlock them. But I also don't think neighborhoods are going to have much trouble with this. The tasks themselves run the gamut of gameplay, from crafting to gathering to questing, to completing dungeons or raids. We want there to always be a way for any given player to contribute to the endeavor, regardless of how they choose to engage with World of Warcraft. Successfully completing tasks not only yields rewards expected from that sort of task's gameplay, but also grants a new type of endeavor currency, which is shared across all endeavors as well as neighborhood favor. Neighborhood favor is used to level up your house and earn rewards, while the endeavor currency is used to buy decorations from the visiting NPCs, in either your neighborhood or in your friends' neighborhoods. Once enough tasks have been completed in an endeavor, the entire neighborhood is rewarded together, with bonus endeavor currency and neighborhood favor, as well as the ability to purchase all the decorations at the NPCs, provided players have sufficient currency. Our goals for endeavors are threefold. 1. To give the neighborhood a common goal to rally around and be rewarded for it collectively. It feels good to complete things together, and we want to encourage both synchronous and asynchronous play with your neighbors. 2. To give neighborhoods a choice in how things are visually presented on a larger scale, not just in individual player-owned plots. 3. Introduce some asymmetry between neighborhoods to make visiting other neighborhoods more interesting. So it sounds like it's going to work like the trading post. As long as you're playing the game, you'll unlock plenty. I almost want more of a challenge. I've wanted the trading post to offer more of a challenge for ages, but I also get it. You don't want anyone to feel locked out of the fun content just because they had a pesky real life to attend to. The post also shows us that houses will have levels, very similar to the way renown tracks currently work. One of the unlocks is increased decor limit. I kinda suspect some of this will work a little bit like dragon riding. In the beginning, we all had to unlock the different abilities because it was new, but now everyone gets them the moment you log in. I'm intrigued by this Find a House button with the address next to it. Only 2 houses per account, remember, and this page is on one of those too. Feels like a lot of unnecessary UI work to have a drop-down menu for a maximum of 2 houses. I wonder if Sansong Ranch is an address that's going to happen to show up in there. Or a certain barrel-bottom apartment, or maybe a house in Silvermoon. And that pretty much brings me to the end of the post, and I'm surprised to find just how excited I am for Neighbourhoods. I expected the system to be something I didn't like about player housing. Turns out I'm really excited to visit these neighborhoods, and not just my own. I can't wait to pretty much be able to endlessly explore these new settlements of Razorwind Cavern and Founders Point. Which brings me to my second bit of lore speculation. If players are, undeniably, spending so much time in these new areas, settling there, creating memories there, then surely that can only end up making its way into the lore. As I said before, Founders Point even sounds like a new settlement, but new settlements can turn into sprawling cities surprisingly quickly. I've seen concerns that Neighbourhoods could wind up emptying out Orgrimmar and Stormwind. And for a start, so what if it does? I'm sorry, I'm Horde, I'm sick of Dirt Orange. Yes, there will still be plenty of that in Razorwind Cavern, but at least they've promised me beaches as well. I've also played this game for a really long time, and while I realize this is practically blasphemy, I'm so sick to death of Stormwind and Orgrimmar. My god, can't we all just hang about in a new location for once? I mean, for longer than a single expansion. Neighbourhoods not only have the potential to become the new long-term player hub, they could end up feeling more like a city than our traditional capital cities. They'll certainly be much bigger than Stormwind or Orgrimmar ever could. After all, you might live in one of Razorwind Cavern's smaller neighbourhoods, but the ability to visit a potentially endless amount of other neighbourhoods can only make the entire place feel that much bigger overall. It will depend on how this goes, but art does imitate life, or virtual life, you know what I mean. If the neighbourhoods of Founders Point and Razorwind Cavern end up becoming more meaningful to players on an emotional level than Stormwind or Orgrimmar, and yeah, I realize that's a big if, then it would be silly for the story not to acknowledge that. Imagine if our homes don't just feel like this fun little casual feature, but a really important part of the established world that we built ourselves. Personally, I'm excited to see what happens. I think player housing has the potential to revolutionize the game, even in ways that are completely unexpected. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, you can also like, subscribe, enable notifications, share, tell your friends, talk about it in your neighborhoods, all that good YouTube stuff. You can also join me in thanking my Patreons who help make sure these videos happen. I try to release a video every Friday, and you can sometimes find me streaming both on here and on Twitch. I'm always happy to talk about all things lore, so while that's all for now, hopefully I will see you again soon.